White Coats, Red Lines by Layla S. Kassim. Prologue. You don't hear the missile that kills you, not the one that matters. There might be a whine, distant at first, a mechanical screech of guidance fins, but then comes silence, a stillness so unnatural your skin knows before your mind catches up. And then the air turns inside out. That was how the El Noor Hospital lost its western wing. A flash, a roar, and a vacuum that swallowed voices, lungs, and time. It was a Monday. There had been a truce the 3 days. Children were coloring in one of the corridors. Someone had brought a generator to run the ventilators. For a moment, Gaza had something that resembled hope. It didn't last. El Noor was never meant to be a hospital. It was a former university, repurposed hastily with plastic sheeting, shattered desks, and military surplus beds. The operating room was built in the faculty lounge. The pharmacy was a storeroom for printers. There were no elevators, no air conditioning, no sterile gowns that weren't reused a dozen times. But it had heart, real heart, and people who stayed even when they should have run. Doctors, nurses, translators, drivers, volunteers who stitched flesh by flashlight and wrapped the dying in dignity. This is not a story of victory. It is not a tale of conquest or glory. No statues will be erected. No medals will be pinned. The world may never know their names. But in that crumbling shell of a hospital, under siege, underfunded, under threat, they did something almost unthinkable. They chose to stay. And in staying, they gave a few more lives a chance to continue. This is their story. White Coats, Red Lines. Chapter 1, The Arrival Window. The white van crossed into Gaza at dawn, riding on nerves, bulletproof tires, and a prayer whispered in 3 languages. Its passengers sat in silence, the kind that felt too full to speak through. The kind that could only exist on the edge of war. Dr. Samira Al-Rawi leaned her forehead against the dusty glass, watching the Rafah crossing vanish in the rearview mirror. It had taken 47 hours to get clearance. 47 hours of waiting, vetting, vouching, checkpoint bureaucracy, and grim-faced Egyptian officials who'd triple-checked their IDs but wouldn't meet their eyes. Now they were inside Gaza. To Samira, it felt like coming home and stepping into a grave at the same time. The air had a different density here, denser than Cairo, drier than London. The morning haze was laced with dust and ash. Smoke rose from the skeletal remains of an apartment block to their left. A dog barked somewhere, hollow and angry. A boy in a Barcelona football jersey pedaled a rusted bike past the van without looking up. Theo Hartman sat beside her, knees pressed awkwardly against the duffel bag between them. He had broad shoulders, military posture, and a face carved by too many years in places that looked like this one. Afghanistan, South Sudan, Mosul. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his words were scalpel sharp and rarely wasted. Behind them, Noor Issa hummed softly under her breath, something Arabic and old. She was cradling a box of donated antibiotics in her lap like it was a child. Beside her, Hannah McKay was adjusting the harness on her action camera. "Are we being stupid?" Hannah muttered, mostly to herself. "This feels like a very stupid idea." Noor shrugged. "Only a little." "Stupid is the job," Theo said. "Smart people stay home." No one laughed. The van bounced over broken concrete. The driver, an old man named Rafat who hadn't spoken since picking them up, navigated the wreckage-strewn road like he'd done it 100 times blindfolded. His hands were bandaged, his left pinky was missing. Up ahead, the husk of the UN truck lay on its side, burned out and riddled with holes. A makeshift sign had been propped nearby in both Arabic and English. "No shelter, no safe zone." "Al Noor Hospital," Rafat said for the first time, pointing. 2 minutes. Samira's stomach tightened. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a photo. A faded printout of her brother, Adnan, aged 17, standing on the rooftop of their childhood home with a slingshot in hand and a smile too wide for the moment. He'd vanished 3 years ago. No grave, no body. Just a rumor that he joined the resistance or died trying to get out. She folded the photo and tucked it away. Time to work. Al-Noor Hospital had once been Al-Noor Polytechnic University, but there were no students anymore. The front gate hung crooked, its welcome sign charred at the edges. The parking lot had become a makeshift triage zone. Stretchers, tarps, folding chairs, dozens of people clustered around its entrance, holding IV bags or crying into shoulders. The smell hit them before they stepped out of the van. Iodine, blood, smoke, and something deeper. Rot, maybe. Despair. They were greeted by a thin man in surgical scrubs soaked to the elbow. He wiped his brow with a gloved hand and offered a weary smile. "Dr. Samira?" he asked. "I'm Dr. Farid Al-Khatib, head of what remains." "God help us," Theo muttered under his breath. Farid didn't flinch. "He's been trying. I think he gave up last week." They shook hands. Brief introductions followed. Then, no time for ceremony, Farid led them inside. Power flickered overhead. No AC. The floor was streaked with muddy footprints and something darker. A girl of maybe 8 was being sewn up in a corridor corner. No anesthetic. She didn't scream. Farid briefed them as they walked. "We have 3 surgeons, 2 of whom are barely out of internship. No ortho, no cardio, no neuro." "You?" "Trauma," Samira replied. "God bless you." "What's the blood situation?" Theo asked. "We trade for it. Families donate for each other. Otherwise, saline and hope." "What about the generator?" "Intermittent. It feeds the OR and the ventilators. Everything else is candlelight or phone torches." Hannah's camera beeped softly, already capturing. Noor turned away from it instinctively. Farid stopped at a door marked "Operating Theatre" in fading English. "This is you now." Samira stepped inside. It wasn't a theatre. It was a converted faculty lounge, as promised. The operating table was a warped desk covered in sterilized tarps. A surgical lamp dangled overhead like a dying jellyfish. Instruments sat in trays on what used to be a coffee table. But there was a patient, male, 20s, shrapnel in the abdomen, unconscious, bleeding steadily. Farid looked to Samira. "No time for orientation. He came in 10 minutes ago. I held pressure. You want to scrub." Samira pulled on gloves, already moving toward the tray. "I'm in." Theo assisted. Noor translated. Hannah filmed, then stopped filming. Some things didn't belong online. Samira found herself inside the moment, focused, locked in. It didn't matter that the gloves were thin or the scalpel was dulled. It didn't matter that the power surged and died twice in the first 5 minutes, or that Theo had to hold a flashlight in his teeth while adjusting suction. What mattered was the artery. Torn, leaking like a slashed hose. Clamp, suture, seal. The rhythm of life-saving was universal, timeless, pure. They closed him. He lived. Later, outside, Theo sat smoking on a low wall that might once have been part of a campus cafe. The stars were faint above the haze. Gunfire popped in the distance like sick fireworks. Samira joined him, cradling a dented thermos of mint tea someone had handed her without a word. She didn't drink, just held it for warmth. "Good cut today," Theo said. "Not the worst I've done." "Could have fooled me. Clean lines, steady hand. He would have bled out in 5. "I know." They sat in silence, the kind that wasn't heavy, just tired. Then Samira asked, "Why do you do this?" Theo exhaled. "Because I didn't the first time." She didn't push, he didn't elaborate. A few minutes later, Hannah joined them, camera off, eyes red. "Don't know if I'm cut out for this," she said. Noor appeared too, carrying a bowl of rice and boiled eggs. She set it down between them. "You'll adjust," Noor said. "Or you won't. Either way, people still bleed. No one touched the food." Underlined, at 3:14 a.m., the hospital's WhatsApp alert pinged. "Urgent, strike in Khan Yunis, mass casualties incoming." Samira stood before the others did. "Let's get ready." Theo ground his cigarette into the concrete. Noor pulled her hair back into a bun. Hannah hit record. The night had only just begun. Chapter 2. Khan Yunis bleeds. The first ambulance arrived at 3:38 a.m. Its siren cut, but its lights flashing like a strobe through the half-collapsed gate of Al-Noor. A second one skidded to a halt moments later, followed by a third, a pickup truck with a body piled under a plastic tub in the back. Then the screaming began. Theo met them in the courtyard with gloves already on, arms raised to gesture patients toward the triage area. Red tag, abdomen, red. Green, walks on their own. Black, black. Someone take that one to the back. Noor ran with him, clipboard clutched in one hand, pen in the other. She moved like she'd been doing it for years, because she had. Samira was already in the OR, prepping for her second surgery of the night. An 11-year-old girl with burns across half her body. Her right leg was splintered with wooden slats and duct tape. Farid was inside with her. Sweat soaked his scrubs. "We should amputate," he said grimly, "but we have no anesthesia." Samira nodded. "Ketamine? 5 vials left. Use one." They didn't even close the door behind them. There was no time. Hannah stayed in the intake tent, filming for the first few minutes, then stopping when a mother pressed her face into Hannah's chest and wailed into her hoodie like it was the last cloth on earth. The woman's son had lost his left leg below the knee. The medics had cauterized the wound on site, using a steel bar heated over a roadside fire. He was 10. Hannah had seen car accidents, bar fights, stabbings, but nothing like this. Not 30 kids in a night. Not the sound a mother makes when she watches her child's body convulse from shrapnel still inside. She stepped outside, behind the mess tent, and vomited until bile stung her throat. Someone handed her a bottle of water. It was Rafat, the driver. He looked at her with bloodshot eyes and said simply, "First time?" She nodded. He patted her shoulder. "There's no shame in leaving, sister." "I'm not leaving." "You will, or you'll die in pieces." Then he walked away. By dawn, 26 bodies lined the hallway outside the surgery room. Not all of them had names. There were no body bags, only bedsheets. Families stood vigil over their loved ones, while children wandered barefoot between gurneys, clutching stuffed animals coated in ash. Samira scrubbed her hands for the 5th time that night. The water came out brown. She didn't bother complaining anymore. Theo sat slumped against the wall outside the OR, shirt soaked through, latex gloves torn. He was staring at his hands like he didn't recognize them. Noor approached with a protein bar and a cracked thermos. "You need 10 minutes, she said. "I need 40. You get 10. Theo chuckled. It was a hollow sound, but he took the bar. Samira emerged and tossed her mask into a bucket. "Get some rest," she told Theo. He looked up at her, dark circles etched beneath his eyes. "You believe in fate?" he asked. Samira blinked. "No." He nodded slowly. "Neither did I, until I saw the same child die 3 times in 3 different wars. Same face, same scream, different name." She sat beside him on the tiles. They didn't speak again for a long time. Outside in the tent used for green patients, Hannah interviewed a man who had just found his sister's hand in a pile of rubble. He told his story in Arabic. Noor translated between triage calls. "I couldn't find her head, just her hand. She had a ring. This ring." He held it up to the camera. A silver band with a chipped turquoise stone. "I kept it. That's all I have left. I can't bury a ring. I can't kiss it goodbye." Hannah didn't ask any more questions. She turned the camera off. That afternoon, Ayad Rashwan arrived. He wore a red crescent vest and sunglasses that hid the exhaustion beneath. His convoy had been delayed 12 hours at the Rafah crossing. He'd brought 4 pallets of supplies and a box of oranges. The supplies were mostly gauze and oral rehydration salts. "What happened to the morphine?" Samira asked him, eyes sharp. "Confiscated," he replied. "By who?" "Take your pick. IDF, Egyptian customs, local factions. Everyone wants leverage. So we have nothing for pain? We have ibuprofen." "Great. That'll be comforting when we're sawing off legs." Ayad didn't flinch. "I do what I can. You want me to lie?" She didn't respond. Later, she found Theo under the shade of a collapsed bus shelter, cleaning scalpels in boiled water. "Remind me." He muttered, "Why we didn't bring tequila instead." The next day, a teenager showed up with a bullet wound to the thigh. He claimed he'd been caught in crossfire near a checkpoint. Samira removed the slug, but Farid pulled her aside afterward. "That boy is Hamas," he said flatly. "I've seen him before. He's not collateral." Samira looked him in the eye. "So?" Farid blinked. "If you treat him, we risk retaliation. We're doctors." Gaza doesn't care about the Hippocratic Oath. Neither does the IDF, or the press, or your donors. Samira exhaled. "He's bleeding, that's what matters." Farid didn't argue, but his jaw stayed tight. Later, Noor confided to Hannah, "Every patient is a political act here." Hannah asked, "How do you cope?" Noor smiled thinly. "I don't, I just triage the guilt." That night, they had an actual dinner. Rice, beans, pickled vegetables. It felt like a feast. Someone lit a candle. Rafat told a joke about a donkey crossing a minefield. Noor laughed. Theo didn't. Hannah filmed the moment quietly. Then, Samira raised a toast with lukewarm Pepsi. "To the living," she said. They clinked plastic cups. "To the stubborn," Theo added. "To the absurd," said Ayad. "To tomorrow," Noor finished, softer. Then came the distant boom. The power went out again, but they didn't flinch this time. They just finished eating in the dark. End sentence. Journal entry. Samira Al-Rawi. Day 4. The burns are the worst. Melted plastic fuses with flesh. The smell is impossible to forget. I operated on a toddler whose eyelids wouldn't close anymore. We did what we could. His uncle asked me if he'd ever see again. I lied. Theo is unraveling. So am I, probably. But we don't talk about that. We just keep moving. I dreamed about Adnan last night. He was standing in the courtyard, unburned, clean, smiling. But his mouth was full of blood. I woke up screaming. I didn't apologize. No one asked me to. 2 days later, the first drone buzzed overhead. It circled for 10 minutes before vanishing into cloud cover. They heard the explosion a few minutes after that, north of the city, near a water pumping station. No one came in from it. No survivors. Just a new blackout. No clean water for the rest of the week. Farid held an emergency meeting that evening. "If we don't get fuel," he said, "we lose the generator. That means no ventilation. No refrigeration. No surgery." Ayad raised his hand. "I can make a call." "To who?" Samira asked. He didn't answer. The team fell silent. In the hallway outside, a child cried softly in his sleep. Later that night, Theo finally spoke about Afghanistan. Samira found him in the OR, sitting beside an intubated patient, a girl with missing toes and a fractured skull. "Her name's Amal," he said. "Means hope, doesn't it?" Samira nodded. "She looks like one we lost outside Helmand, except that one had both arms." He exhaled slowly. "I used to think the job was about saving lives, but it's not. It's about buying time." "For what?" she asked. He looked at her. His voice cracked. "For someone else to figure out how to stop this." Samira didn't reply, just sat with him in the dim light, listening to the girl's ragged breaths. Outside, the drone returned. The buzz didn't stop until sunrise. Chapter 3. Collateral oxygen. On day 9, the oxygen supply failed. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. It began with a wheeze in the neonatal unit. A premature baby girl named Lena turned blue around her lips. The pressure gauge read 7 psi and falling. It should have been above 40. Theo checked the main cylinder and cursed. "Cracked regulator," he growled. "And the backup's bone dry." Ayad was already on the radio, trying to raise anyone with a portable tank. A line crackled, then died. Samira stood at the incubator, her gloved hand pressed gently to Lena's chest. Her breaths were shallow, fingers twitching. "How long does she have?" she asked quietly. Theo didn't answer. He didn't need to. By midday, the hospital's last oxygen tank had been split across 5 patients. All were in critical condition. 2 were infants. 1 was a man who'd lost both legs in the Khan Younis blast. The 4th was a grandmother with heart failure. The 5th was Amal. the girl with the fractured skull Theo had been watching over for days. Farid gathered the team in the hallway. "We can't save them all," he said, voice hollow. "If we share the line too long, we lose all 5. Noor stepped forward. "You want us to choose who gets to breathe?" Farid didn't look at her. "I want us to be realistic." Ayad folded his arms. "There are other hospitals." "Yes," Samira said, "but they're full." Farid turned to her. "Then what do you suggest?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then Samira said, "We stabilize the kids, prioritize them. Give them a fighting chance. And the adults?" Samira stared at the wall. "We give them pain relief, let them go easy." Theo's face hardened. "You're playing God now?" "I'm doing triage," she snapped. "You're deciding who dies." "I'm deciding who has a chance." Theo turned and walked out. He didn't slam the door, but he wanted to. They followed Samira's plan. The grandmother died first. Then the man with no legs. Each one had a hand held. Each one heard their name spoken aloud by someone who meant it. Farid said a prayer over both. Noor wept after the second one. She tried to hide it behind a privacy curtain. Hannah found her there and sat beside her without saying a word. Sometimes silence was the only thing that didn't offend grief. Voice memo, Hannah McKay. "I thought I was just here to document. Just a lens, just a witness. But today I helped carry a body to the morgue. I helped bandage a wound. I told a dying man he mattered. I'm not objective anymore. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I know this. If people back home could see what I saw today, we'd have thousands in the streets. Maybe that's what scares them. Not that they don't know, but that deep down, they do." That evening, Samira was pulled aside by a Red Crescent field officer. "Your footage is trending," he said, the girl in the incubator. "The oxygen crisis. It's on Al Jazeera, BBC, even Sky News. I didn't authorize that. Didn't need to. Someone leaked the feed." Samira's stomach turned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means visibility," he said, "which means danger." A moment later, Hannah arrived, breathless. "We have a problem," she said. "Big one." She handed Samira her phone. On the screen was a tweet. "Breaking. Hamas using foreign doctors to shield operations in Gaza hospital. Israeli government says medical volunteers are knowingly abetting terror. Targeted strikes not ruled out." A video played below. It was Hannah's own footage, cropped and edited to show militants being wheeled into surgery, omitting the part where they were unarmed and bleeding. Samira's heart dropped. Where did they get this? Hannah's voice was barely audible. "I don't know." That night, Samira went to Theo's cot. He was half asleep, still wearing his boots. "They've marked us," she said. "The IDF." He blinked. "You serious? They think we're helping Hamas. They're not wrong. We treat everyone." Samira sat down hard on the edge of his cot. "I have people calling from London, the ministry, NGOs, everyone's scrambling. What do we do?" "We prepare to evacuate." Theo shook his head. "We can't move the patients. We might not get the choice." Samira remembered being 9, her mother explaining why the hospital in East Jerusalem locked its doors at night. "Because sometimes, Samira, the people with the guns forget you're not the enemy." Back then, she didn't understand. Now she did. Third, the next morning, a strategy was drawn. Farid, Ayad, and Samira formed a makeshift command center in the morgue, ironically the only room with a locking door. They listed who could be moved, who couldn't, nor compiled medications into Ziploc bags labeled in Arabic, English, and French. Hannah backed up footage onto 3 separate drives and destroyed the originals. She cried as she wiped the folders. "Why?" Noor asked. "Because this footage saved lives. And it might also get us all killed." 4. Outside, a man approached the gate. He carried a rifle and wore civilian clothes, but his posture screamed militia. Rafat intercepted him, exchanged words, then waved for Samira. "He wants you," Rafat muttered. Samira approached warily. Theo followed. The man introduced himself only as Abu Khaled. "You helped my cousin," he said. "He was a fighter." "I help everyone," Samira replied. "You saved him." "Good.
Abu Khaled's face was unreadable. People in the camp, they're watching. They think you're loyal. I'm loyal to my patients. He nodded, then handed her a phone. Take this. If there's danger, call. I'll come. She took it without a word. When he left, Theo murmured, That's not good. It's worse if we refuse, she said. 4. That afternoon, Ayad's contacts pulled through. A truck with oxygen and fuel barrels arrived under cover of smoke and shouting. 3 young men unloaded it without speaking, then disappeared. Samira wanted to ask who they were working for. She didn't. They filled the generator, restarted the chillers, hooked up the ventilators. Lena, the baby, pinked up again. Theo fist-bumped Ayad in the hallway. Sometimes, Ayad said, we get lucky. Theo replied, luck runs out. 4. That night, there was no bombing. The quiet was unnatural. No drones, no sirens, just wind through broken windows and the occasional murmur of someone sleeping fitfully on a stretcher. Samira walked the halls, checked vitals, watched Amal breathe. She sat beside the girl and whispered, You don't know this, but you're the reason we stayed. She didn't expect an answer. She got one anyway, a whisper, barely audible. Mama? Samira froze, then reached for her hand.
I'm here. Outside the hospital, shadows moved along the rooftops. Whether they were allies or enemies, no one could say. Inside, the white coats worked on borrowed time, caught between red lines drawn by foreign powers, local factions, and fate itself. But for one night, a hospital breathed. So did its people. And in that fragile breath, hope lingered. Chapter 4. The Things We Don't Say. The morning light in Gaza wasn't kind. It cast sharp shadows over destruction, lighting rubble like broken monuments. Al-Noor Hospital stood quiet for now. A lull. No sirens, no new arrivals. Just the scratch of pencil on inventory sheets and the occasional clatter of metal bowls. For the first time in 5 days, the team breathed. If not easily, then at least without sprinting between lives on the edge. Samira sat at the admin desk, reviewing surgical records by candle stub. Outside, the corridor echoed with murmured prayers and restless footsteps. She hadn't slept. The skin under her eyes had grayed, and her shoulder ached from being on her feet too long. She caught her reflection in a cracked laptop screen and didn't recognize it. Noor passed by with a tray of herbal tea. You look like a tired lioness, she said, smiling faintly. I feel like a hunted one. Then don't sleep yet. There are still wolves at the gate. Samira raised an eyebrow. You always talk like that, Noor smirked. Only when I'm scared. In the supply room, Theo was patching up Hannah's hand. She'd cut it on a broken IV stand. You need a tetanus shot, he said, cleaning the wound. Do we even have any? 1. You're getting it. Don't argue. I wasn't going to. Theo wrapped her palm, then paused. You all right? I keep wondering and the cost hits me, Hannah said. I feel like I'm borrowing someone else's courage. That's how it works. You mean faking it? I mean doing it anyway. Hannah looked up at him. You have kids? Theo hesitated. No. Want them? I used to. Silence stretched between them. Then he said, They'd have made me soft. I think it would have made you real. That landed harder than either expected. Meanwhile, Samira opened a folder labeled Adnan, last known location. She hadn't meant to, not here, not now. But something in her chest kept tugging at it like a loose thread on a pressure dressing. Inside were 6 photos, her brother at 16, 17. One from the protest in Rafah, one outside the pharmacy their father once ran. 2 screenshots from social media, blurred, grainy, but unmistakable. And one still from drone footage. The figure in the image was mid-stride, carrying what looked like an RPG. It had been tagged, high-value target, possible foreign training, last seen. Beit Lahia. She ran her thumb over the edge of the page. He'd had dreams once, medicine, a scholarship. Now he was a shadow in military reports. She didn't know whether to hope he was alive or not. Later, Noor found her in the storage room. You okay? No. Want to talk about it? No. So they didn't. Instead, Noor sat beside her and told a story about a cat that used to sneak into her grandmother's flat during Ramadan. It would eat dates and leave claw marks on the bread. Grandma blamed the neighbors, she said. called the police once, over a cat. Samira chuckled weakly. You ever think about leaving? She asked. Noor shrugged. Every day. Why don't you? My mother is buried here. My father's in prison. My brother still writes letters from under the floorboards. Someone has to stay and tell their stories. Samira nodded. It's not noble. It's necessary. Just before midnight, the drone returned. Hannah picked up the high-pitched whine first. She froze mid-interview with a patient. Drone, she whispered. Theo stepped outside. The sky was clear. The buzz moved in a slow figure 8 above the hospital. Samira joined him, lifting a pair of field binoculars. Model? She asked. Israeli Hermes 450, he said. Short-range recon. Surveillance class. Doesn't usually strike. Usually. Theo frowned. They're watching us. For how long? Hard to say. Hannah checked the battery on her camcorder. Should we move? No, Theo said. That's what they want. Friday. In her cot, Samira lay awake and imagined what it would feel like if the drone did strike. Would it be instant? Would she hear it coming? Would it come through the roof and erase everything in the OR? She turned the thought over and over like a sharp stone in her pocket. Eventually, sleep claimed her, but her dreams were red. Friday. The next morning brought a strange visitor. A woman in her early 30s arrived alone, wrapped in a dark shawl, barefoot, carrying a satchel filled with medical records. I'm Dr. Layali Jabba, she said in flawless English. I'm here for the prenatal cases. Farid furrowed his brow. We weren't expecting anyone new. I know. You crossed alone? She nodded. Theo examined her satchel. Inside were blood pressure cuffs, 2 fetal monitors, and a note, handwritten in French, from Médecins Sans Frontières. She's legit, he said. Samira shook her hand. We can use the help. But something in Layali's eyes was off. She looked around too often, flinched when doors slammed. That night, Noor found her in the stairwell, smoking clove cigarettes and crying into her sleeve. They shot my cousin, Layali whispered. He was trying to bring in insulin for a child. Noor sat beside her. And you came anyway? Layali nodded. Because the child's still alive. Friday, the following morning. The crisis returned. 3 new patients arrived, all convulsing. Farid ran tox screens on what little equipment still worked. Phosphate exposure, he confirmed grimly. Likely chemical agent. Crop field residue, maybe misused, maybe intentional. Samira moved fast. IV flushes, seizure meds, respirators on standby. Theo snapped, Where's the damn atropine? Gone, Farid replied. Then we guessed doses from expired stocks. We could kill them. We'll definitely kill them if we don't. They chose one, administered a half dose. The boy, 12, name unknown, stopped convulsing. He didn't wake up, but his heart kept beating. In the corridor, Theo punched the wall hard enough to split his knuckles. Samira pulled him aside. Breathe. I'm trying. You're not failing. I lost 12 people this week. We all did. He looked at her, face tight. You know what I envy about the dead? What? They don't have to watch the ones they didn't save. Samira didn't respond. Instead, she offered him a clean bandage. He let her wrap his hand. That night, Samira wrote a letter. She wouldn't send it, but she wrote it anyway. Adnan, I don't know if you're alive. I don't know if you're one of the faces I pass every day, bleeding out under a false name, or if you're the reason some of them are here at all. But I still believe you meant to do good. I still remember how you carried kittens off the road, even when the neighbors laughed. I remember your slingshot, how you never used it for anything living. If you've become something else, then I'll grieve the boy you were. But if you're still out there, God, please don't come here. This place takes everything, even the parts of us we thought were unbreakable. Outside, the bus of the drone returned. This time, lower, persistent. The hospital's windows lit up as if a spotlight hovered above. And then the text came. Full. Evacuate 30 minutes. Strike imminent. Samira read it aloud. Farid went pale. Theo whispered, They're going to hit us. Ayad made the first call to the Red Crescent.
Noor began gathering records and meds. Hannah turned on her camera, then stopped.
"Not this," she said. "No one needs to see this." Layali gathered the pregnant women first.
Samira moved toward the OR.
"We can't move everyone," Fareed warned.
Samira's voice was iron.
"Then we stay with who we can." Chapter 5: Evacuation Protocol. The text glared from the cracked hospital phone like a final verdict. "Full. Evacuate 30 minutes. Strike imminent. No signature. No callback number. Just the cold, sterile weight of authority." Samira read it again, then turned to the others. "We have 30 minutes." The corridor froze. Nurses stopped mid-stride. A father holding his daughter's IV bag blinked like he hadn't heard correctly.
An old man on a gurney whimpered without knowing why.
Theo dropped his clipboard. "This is a death notice." "No coordinates?" asked Ayad. "No."
"They're not warning us," Fareed said.
"They're erasing liability." Noor stared at the walls like they could collapse at any second. "We're the target." Theo shook his head. "Or someone near us is. Doesn't matter." Samira raised her voice. Calm, clear, surgical. "Everyone who can walk, help move those who can't. Prioritize children, maternity, and trauma survivors under 72 hours post-op. All red tags stay here." "No," said Noor. "You can't ask me to leave them." Samira looked her dead in the eye. "I'm asking you to save who you can. That's all we have now." Chaos erupted in controlled bursts. Theo and Fareed coordinated the triage zones, dividing patients into movable, marginal, and unmovable. Layali took charge of the maternity wing, her voice slicing through panic with military efficiency. Hannah ran backup power from her camera batteries into the OR LED strips. "So if we go down, they still see us." Ayad called in every contact he had, voice hoarse with urgency. A Red Crescent van was on standby. 2 ambulances had flat tires. A third was reportedly blocked by rubble 5 blocks north. "We can move 30 max," he said. "We have 83, Samira replied. Then she pulled on her gloves. 22 minutes left. Theo entered the OR to find Samira prepping for emergency intubation. "What the hell are you doing?" "She'll suffocate if we don't stabilize her before we move her," she said. "We don't have time." "Then help me make it." He stared at her for a long moment, then scrubbed in. Outside, Noor walked a 9-year-old boy named Kareem out of the ward. He had a cast on one leg and burns on his scalp. He clutched a stuffed lamb, burnt at the ears, but intact. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere safer," she lied. "Will it have books?" "I hope so." "What if I can't sleep?" "You'll have 100 dreams to choose from," she said. He smiled. Then a shell landed somewhere distant, too close for comfort. The building trembled. Noor didn't flinch. Neither did Kareem. That was the most frightening part. Layali helped deliver a baby in the corridor, with 12 minutes left. The mother had gone into labor early from stress. "No scalpels," someone shouted. "Use the damn scissors," Layali snapped. The baby came out slick and silent. Everyone held their breath. Then it wailed, a shriek that echoed down the bloodied hall. They named her Aisha. Fareed wrapped her in gauze and wept silently. Voice memo, Noor Issa. "I packed syringes, gauze, morphine, and threw them out and packed crayons. I don't know why. The children look at me like I have answers. I don't even have a full sentence. I want to tell them, you'll grow up. I want to tell them, this isn't forever. But I've said those lies before, and some of those children are under the concrete now. I just want to say their names before the sky forgets them." End. 5 minutes left. The first van arrived. Theo helped load in the ventilated patients. 2 babies, 1 burn victim. A mother holding a toddler with missing fingers. Hannah guided others into the Red Crescent vehicle. She had removed every label from her gear. No NGO logos, no country flags. Samira emerged from the OR, blood up to her elbows. She met Noor at the gate. "You're going." Samira said, "No." "Yes, you're the best chance they have on the road. These kids know you, trust you." "And what about you?" "I stay." "Why?" "Because someone always has to." Noor shook her head violently. "You can't." Samira pulled her into a hug. Hard, fierce. like saying goodbye with her bones. Then she let go and pushed her toward the van. Noor stumbled inside and didn't look back. End. 1 minute left. Theo stood beside Samira on the roof, watching the drone light circle. "We should have gone," he said. "No. You sure we're not just being stubborn?" Samira exhaled. "No." Below them, Hannah filmed her final shot. Just shadows moving behind the hospital gate, an ambulance pulling away, the rising hum of death above. She turned the camera off and waited. 30 minutes passed. Nothing. 35. 40. Still nothing. Theo looked at Samira. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe the footage reached the wrong people. Or the right ones. They didn't exhale until 51 minutes after the warning. The drone left. Silence followed. No bombs, no death, just more waiting. End. The remaining team regrouped in the surgery wing. Farid was asleep on the floor, IV bag still in hand. Layali was rocking baby Aisha in a plastic laundry basket. Hannah leaned against the doorframe, camera at her side like a weapon she no longer knew how to wield. Theo slumped beside the oxygen tanks and whispered, "We made it." Samira nodded, hollow-eyed, but she didn't feel like they'd survived. She felt like they'd been shelved, spared for another chapter, a crueler one. End. That night she dreamed as Adnan again. This time, he wasn't holding a slingshot. He was standing in the center of Al-Noor, in surgeon's scrubs, smiling, his hands clean. "You stayed," he said. "So did you," she replied. Then the roof peeled open, and light consumed them both. She woke with her fists clenched, nails digging into her palms. At sunrise, the red crescent confirmed the evacuees had made it to Khan Yunis. Noor sent a voice note. "We lost one in transit. The rest are stable. Kareem says he wants to be a nurse. Says you saved his lamb." Samira smiled for the first time in days, then turned to clean the blood-stained cot behind her. End. Al-Noor still stood. Not because it had been spared, but because the people inside had refused to leave each other behind. Because even under fire, literal and metaphorical, they drew their own red lines and stood behind them. Chapter 6. What Remains. 3 days after the evacuation notice, the bombing finally came. Not on Al-Noor Hospital, but close. 2 buildings north, what used to be a civil records office, now just grey powder and rebar. They pulled 10 survivors from the rubble. 6 were brought to the hospital. 4 didn't make it through the night. Or. There were fewer patients now. That should have made it easier. It didn't. Samira worked in eerie silence, suturing a facial wound on a boy who never blinked. He had glass in his cheek and no name. Probably mute. Probably in shock. Every time she passed him a mirror, he turned it around so he wouldn't have to look. She envied him. Or. Outside, the streets had thinned. Even the air seemed quieter. Too quiet, like a city holding its breath after a scream. Children no longer played in the rubble. They counted instead. How many steps from crater to shelter? How many hours since the last drone? Theo had taken to walking the perimeter with a radio clipped to his belt and a wrench in his back pocket. He checked the generator, the fence line, the water storage. He didn't talk much, just moved like a man who expected everything to collapse at any moment. Or. Hannah spent more time in the admin room, organizing names. Names of the dead, names of the missing, names no one would read. She found herself whispering them under her breath. One evening, she stopped Samira outside the OR. "I feel useless," she said. "You're not. I film people dying. I post it. I ask the world to care." Samira didn't answer. She didn't have an answer. Hannah went on. "Sometimes I think it's all just theater. We're bleeding on stage for an audience that left at intermission." Samira looked at her. "Then we perform for the ones who stayed." Or. Personal log. Theo Hartman. "I saw a boy die in Kandahar. Shot through the lung. Bled out before the medevac touched down. His sister was 7. She pressed her hands to his chest and said, 'Don't go. I didn't mean it.' I don't know what she meant. Probably a fight. Siblings do that. But I hear her voice more than I hear gunfire in my head. That's the real sound of war. Not bombs,
just grief that never gets to say goodbye. Or. On the 4th day after the strike warning, a convoy of armored personnel carriers arrived outside Al-Noor. UN insignia, blue helmets, diplomatic posture, white SUVs with dusted logos. Theo and Ayad met them at the gate. The commander, a tall Norwegian named Lieutenant Rikke Dahl, offered no smile, just paperwork and protocol.
You've been designated a protected medical site under International Observer Agreement, she said. Samira joined them moments later. We already were, she said flatly. Now it's official, Dahl replied. Theo raised an eyebrow. So we're safe? No one's safe, but now it would look bad. The soldiers set up a perimeter, checkpoints, sandbags, portable antenna, and just like that, Al-Noor became a symbol, again. A humanitarian stronghold in the middle of devastation. Media attention surged. Foreign journalists arrived, some respectful, some performative. Samira refused all interviews. Hannah chose carefully. She gave one to a South African outlet run by volunteers. Her clip went viral. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about who bleeds while the world debates. These kids don't need resolutions, they need respirators. For 48 hours, the hospital trended. Then something else trended. Then silence. That night, Amal died. Theo was with her when she slipped under. She didn't gasp, didn't cry. She just went. A nurse found him an hour later, still holding her hand. The next morning, he sat on the edge of the roof and said nothing for 3 hours. Hannah brought him coffee. He didn't drink it. Just stared at the horizon like it had stolen something from him. In the supply room, Layali cornered Samira. We need to talk. About? Your brother. Samira froze. What about him? I saw his photo. The one in your pocket. Samira said nothing. Layali continued. I met him once, before all this. He came through Rafah pretending to be a medical courier, said he had antivenom for snake bites. And? He had encrypted flash drives. He gave one to me, told me not to look. Did you? Yes. What was on it? Names, coordinates, maybe a hit list, maybe just ghosts. Samira leaned against the wall. Do you think he's alive? Layali hesitated. I think if he was, we'd know. People like him don't go quietly. Samira blinked back something that wasn't quite a tear. Maybe silence is mercy. That night, Samira asked Theo, if you had to choose between saving one patient or saving your soul, which would you pick? He replied without looking at her. Depends whose soul it is. 2 days later, a delegation from Geneva arrived. Clipboard men, sanitizer, lanyards, the smell of foreign detachment. They took pictures of burned walls, asked how many beds, how many generators, how many amputations per week. No one answered at first. Then Ayad snapped, count the graves. Silence. A diplomat offered to help transfer remaining patients to a safer hospital in Egypt. Farid scoffed. The road to Rafah is paved with corpses. You want to ride over them? They left 2 hours later. Promised follow-ups. Never sent any. After they left, life at Al-Noor resumed its rhythm. Bandage, sew, hydrate, pray. A baby girl was born. Noor named her Dahlia, after her mother who died in labor. Theo fixed the solar inverter with wire scavenged from a broken coffee machine. Hannah edited video of Kareem teaching other kids how to change a dressing. Samira removed shrapnel from a man's hip. No ID, no memory, just one phrase he repeated. We were sitting for tea. That's how wars were measured, in moments interrupted. That evening, they gathered on the roof. No drones overhead, no bombs, just sky. Someone played music through an old Bluetooth speaker, scratchy Fairuz, barely audible. Layali lit a cigarette. Ayad passed out orange slices. Noor laid her head on Hannah's shoulder. Farid recited a verse from the Quran. Samira sat beside Theo, hands in her lap. He finally broke the silence. Do you think we made a difference? Samira didn't answer right away. Then she said, we're still here. Chapter 7. Ghost Protocol. It rained in Gaza. Just enough to tamp the dust down, slick the rubble, and make the cracks in Al-Noor's concrete weep like open wounds. Rain didn't stop the war, but it made things quieter. It gave the illusion of stillness until someone noticed the roof leaking into the maternity tent, or the power inverter shorted from humidity. Theo stood outside with his face to the sky, eyes closed, letting the drops hit him like absolution. Noor passed by holding 2 blankets soaked through. "Romantic, isn't it?" she said dryly. "Only if you're not holding a defibrillator," Theo replied. Samira sat in the admin room, staring at the encrypted flash drive Layali had given her. She hadn't told anyone she had it. Not Theo, not Noor, not Fareed. Just slipped it into the lining of her field coat and carried it like a tumor. There was no laptop safe enough to open it on, no network secure enough. But the weight of it was growing. Her brother's name had surfaced twice now, in whispered rumors from volunteers, in a border incident report, scribbled in shorthand on a Red Crescent manifest. Adnan al-Rawi. Missing, maybe dead, maybe not. And if he wasn't, then who was she working to save? Personal log, Dr. Samira al-Rawi. When we were kids, Adnan and I made up stories. He was always the resistance fighter. I was the doctor who stitched him up. We'd wrap his knee in toilet paper, tape it with chewing gum. He once told me, "One day I'll be a ghost, but you'll still be real." I didn't understand, now I do. He was never built for this world, just for the idea of it. Later that afternoon, Layali confronted Hannah near the generator shed. "You've been transmitting," she said. "Not just storing, broadcasting." Hannah stiffened. That wasn't the deal. There was no deal.
"But we trusted you. I've only uploaded what we agreed on." Layali held up her phone, then explained this. She played a video, security footage of Hannah in the admin room at 2:13 a.m., copying files to a foreign VPN drive. "Where did you send it?" "To Geneva." "Why?" "Because it showed a child suffocating while we debated whether to share our last ampule of atropine." Layali's jaw clenched. "You think outrage will save us. I think silence will bury us." A long pause. Then Layali turned and walked away. Theo approached Samira as she changed dressings on an elderly man, missing half his hand. "We have a problem," he said. "When don't we?" "Hannah's footage triggered something. There's a rumor floating that the hospital is hiding weapon caches." Samira didn't even blink. "We're not." "That doesn't matter. Who started it? Could have been anyone. UN soldiers talk. Red Crescent drivers talk. You know how this goes." Samira sighed. "We become a liability," he nodded, "or an excuse." That night, the drone returned. Just one, silent, low, patient. Theo sat on the roof and stared at it like he could will it away. Below, Samira paced the main ward. Noor whispered stories to 2 burn victims. Layali read from a tattered copy of The Prophet. Fareed hummed under his breath as he cleaned scalpels. And Hannah stood by the door, filming nothing. Just listening. Just watching. She hadn't uploaded anything since the argument. And she wouldn't again. Not without permission. Samira spoke to Layali in the hallway. "You were right," she said. "About the footage. About the danger." Layali shook her head. "No, I was just scared." "We all are." Layali looked out the broken window. "Do you ever think we're just rearranging furniture on a sinking ship? Every day. And you keep going? Because there are people in the furniture." They both smiled. It didn't last long, but it was real. That night, Samira finally opened the flash drive. She did it using a disconnected tablet in the morgue, shielded in a steel autopsy drawer. Inside were photos, scans, maps. A single text file named The Last Corridor. She tapped it. Lines of coordinates appeared, followed by code phrases. Then one line in English. "Hospitals are soft targets. Strike at recovery to prolong attrition." Samira's hands trembled. The document had her brother's initials, and Fareed's name. She found Fareed in the stairwell. He looked up, exhausted, blood under his nails. "Where did you serve before Al-Noor?" she asked. He blinked. "What?" "Before here, where were you?" "Ramallah, then Hebron." "Why?" She stepped closer. "I found your name on a logistics document, tied to a black market med pipeline, the same one the IDF intercepted last week." He said nothing. She didn't blink. "Were you feeding intel?" "No." "You sure?" He looked at her. "No," he said. Fareed sat on the stairs, hands open. "Mail for safe passage for my son.
He was trapped in Beit Hanun. Needed a dialysis machine. You traded our location? I sent supply lists. Only that. Nothing tactical. Nothing dangerous. But they knew where we were. He nodded. Samira wanted to scream. Instead, she sat beside him. I would have done the same. The next day passed without event. No drone, no bomb, no arrivals. A strange lull. Like Gaza was holding its breath again. Layali performed a Caesarean in silence. Theo taught Noor how to improvise an IV line using plastic tubing from a broken sink. Hannah filmed a child drawing with a crayon on gauze wrap. He drew a house with a sun above it. There were no people in the picture, just a tree and a locked door. That evening, Kareem returned. He'd survived the convoy. He was walking again, limping, but walking. He hugged Noor and gave her back the stuffed lamb. I want to help now, he said. You already are, she replied. She gave him a job, coloring labels for the medicine jars. He took it seriously. He worked until the candle burned low. Samira stood on the roof, holding the flash drive in one hand and her brother's photo in the other. Then she dropped them both into a metal pail and lit them on fire. Theo approached, watching the flames climb. Letting go? No, just choosing what to carry. That night, the team gathered again. No big speech, no final stand. Just tired people in flickering light, passing around a thermos of bitter tea. Outside, the sky stayed dark. No drones, no bombs. Only the sound of someone playing an oud on the radio. And for a few hours, no one died. Chapter 8, The Ones Who Come Back. The rain had returned. It pooled in the courtyard outside Al-Nur, like bruises on pavement, smearing ash into the earth, softening the edges of bomb craters. Inside, the day began with the drip of an IV, a hiss of steam from a salvaged kettle, and the quiet scuffle of Kareem replacing gauze wraps with hand-labeled stickers that said hope in Arabic and English. Samira stood at the sink in the surgery prep room, washing her hands in silence. Her fingernails were torn, the skin beneath them blackened by iodine and blood. The water never came hot anymore. Noor passed behind her, balancing a tray of boiled syringes. You didn't sleep again. I did. For how long? Long enough to regret it. Noor didn't press. They never did, now. At 10:12 a.m., a vehicle arrived. Not an ambulance, not a UN van. Just a matte black Toyota pickup with no license plate and tinted windows. Rafat, who'd been chopping wood from a collapsed desk out back, dropped the axe when he saw it. Ayad stepped outside first, then Theo. The doors opened. 3 men stepped out. Civilians by clothing, soldiers by gait, faces half covered by scarves. And then a 4th figure emerged, taller, thinner, no weapon. Samira stepped into the light. She froze. The man removed his scarf. Adnan, her brother, alive. H.A. He looked older, harder. Not the boy from the rooftop with the slingshot. Not the medical student with the crooked smile. But the eyes were the same. Sam, he said. The sound cracked the air. You're dead, she whispered. He shook his head slowly. Not yet. Fa? She didn't embrace him, didn't run, just stood. You were in Beit Laia, she said. Yes. You joined them. No one joins here. You survive. That's the only choice left. You vanished. I protected you. She stepped closer. Did you send the drone? No. Did you know it was coming? He hesitated. Yes. Approached from behind, tense. This a social call? He asked. Adnan turned. You're the soldier. Not anymore. Soldiers don't retire in Gaza. They just change uniforms. Theo stepped forward, protective. Why are you here? Adnan glanced at Samira. To warn you. Inside the hospital, word spread quickly. Farid closed the doors. Layali stood beside Noor at the hallway junction, arms folded. Hannah moved to film, then paused. Don't, said Noor softly. Not yet. Adnan entered the admin room with Samira. Just the 2 of them. Did you betray us? She asked. I never betrayed you. You sent Farid names. No, he did that on his own. Then why were you on the drive? Because I gave him the encryption. She stepped back. You made us a target. I thought I was protecting you. You thought you were still playing resistance. He touched his chest.
I'm not playing anything anymore.
Approached. They talked for 12 minutes. He told her about the tunnels, about the smuggled insulin for children, about the hit list he intercepted before it reached the wrong hands, about how he'd been hiding in plain sight. I kept this hospital off it, he said, twice. And the third time. His silence was the answer. Approached. Theo found her later in the courtyard. She was sitting on the step with her knees pulled tight. You okay? No. He didn't say anything. He sat beside her and waited. Finally, she said, "What if the only way to save lives here is to lie about who we are?" Theo shrugged. Then we lie. I used to think the job was about truth, about fixing what's broken. Now I think we're just choosing which fracture doesn't bleed out. Inside, Farid confronted Adnan. You almost got us all killed. Adnan didn't raise his voice. You sent names. I buried them. I sent numbers, not people. Don't split hairs with me. Farid stood trembling. You know what they do to collaborators? Adnan said nothing. Then, I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to stop the next mistake. Farid turned away shaking. He didn't speak again that day. Voice memo, Hannah McKay. I filmed a man reuniting with his sister. He looked like a ghost. She looked like a wound. There are no good guys here. No clean side. Just people trying not to bleed out of their principles. I keep thinking, what happens if we survive this? What happens when we go home and the sound of ventilators hoards our sleep more than the bombs did? What if the worst thing isn't what we saw, but what we let ourselves become to survive it? At sunset, a child was brought in. 11 years old, just wound, hemorrhaging badly. No ID, no family, just blood. Samira prepped for surgery. Theo assisted. Adnan stood outside the OR, holding a bag of Oneg blood he'd sourced from his own network. Do you trust it? Theo asked. No. Samira hesitated, then took it. The girl lived. Finally, the bonds were burning. Noor and Kareem played cards in the corner of the maternity tent while the baby slept. He let her win. She pretended not to notice. Outside, Hannah and Ayad patched a torn tent flap with duct tape and quiet curses. Farid prayed alone in the supply room. Theo cleaned scalpels by flashlight. Samira stitched a young woman's leg without anesthetic. Adnan sat on the roof with a rifle he swore he wouldn't fire. And the war paused. Just for an hour, maybe less. But they all noticed. She turned to him. You gave up medicine. I became medicine. It's not the same. It is here. He held out a slip of paper. Coordinates. A safe corridor. Temporary. Leaked by someone on the inside. Use it, he said, if things get worse. She didn't take it. Not at first, but when she reached for the next bag of saline, it was already gone. And a city that looked the same, whether he was alive or dead. Samira walked through the corridor in silence, touching the walls as if she could feel his echo. She couldn't. She went back to work. Chapter 9. Broadcast. The wind that morning carried the dust of 3 cities. Buildings collapsed overnight in Rafah, a school near Deir al-Bala, an apartment block outside Jabalia. The survivors didn't come. There were no ambulances left, only whispers on the radio, broadcast in jittery Arabic and crackling English. 4 sites leveled in 2 hours, casualty count unknown. Inside Al-Noor, the hospital was eerily quiet. The maternity tent stood half-empty. The trauma bay held 2 patients. The hallway lights flickered, then steadied. It was the calm that came when you'd already lost more than you had left. Hannah sat in the back room, sorting through over 2,000 hours of footage. Faces bled into one another. Screams echoed over stitched scenes. Nothing shocked her anymore. Not the blood, the blown-off limbs, the silence of death. What broke her now were the eyes of those who survived. Eyes that asked, will this matter to anyone? She didn't have an answer, but she had a plan. She found Samira in the stairwell, crouched beside a broken oxygen valve. I want to broadcast everything, Hannah said. Samira didn't look up. Define everything. Raw footage. No edits. No commentary. Just the truth. Samira stood slowly. That will get people killed. People are already dying. It will make us a target. Hannah hesitated. Aren't we already? Samira leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. What do you hope it changes? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Samira closed her eyes, then said the only thing she could say. Do it. Broadcast entry. Hannah McKay. If you're watching this, you've already seen the headlines. You know the names, or think you do. What you don't see are the people behind them. You don't see Fareed, who held a child's hand as she died because there was only one dose of painkiller left, and she needed it more than he did. You don't see Noor teaching burn victims how to count again by reading numbers off their own healing scars. You don't see Samira stitching with shaking hands because her brother might have marked her for death with good intentions. And you don't see me, because I'm behind the lens, but I'm here, and I want you to see. Not war. People. So look, don't look away. She hit upload. The signal passed through 2 VPN chains and a satellite bounce routed through Cyprus. The video would take 6 minutes to hit the public stream. In that time, everything could change. Nothing did, for now. Fareed sat beside Karim, guiding his hands through a basic suture on a practice cloth. You have good fingers, Fareed said. Like a piano player. I've never touched a piano. You still might. Karim smiled. Will you teach me more? Fareed nodded. Yes, if we survive this week. They both laughed. Neither one really meant it. At 13:41, the radio cracked open. A coded alert from a journalist embedded with the UN convoy. Al-Noor listed as active facility in Strug report. Maybe misfiled. Maybe deliberate. Check source. Fear scanned the satellite feed on his field tablet. A drone was circling again, lower than before. This time it wasn't watching. It was mapping. Theo ran. Everyone down. We may be flagged again, he shouted. Layali grabbed the baby incubator. Noor threw open the emergency shelter hatch. Fareed unspooled the emergency cords from the trauma ward IVs. Samira locked the surgical tray. Then she moved toward the radio room. Hannah was already there. The stream had gone live. Over 43,000 views. Then 60,000. Then 120,000. Theo burst in, panting. We need to shut it down. Samira looked at him. We can't. You don't understand. This is bait. I do understand. Then why are you letting it happen? Because if they strike now, the world will see it live. Fareed stood in the hallway holding an oxygen mask. He stared at the ceiling, waiting, wondering whether to run or to stay. The stream reached 700,000 live views. Al Jazeera rebroadcast it. So did several independent media networks in France, Germany, Canada. Clips appeared on TikTok, Instagram, Telegram. The footage, Noor holding a crying infant, cradled in blankets cut from hospital sheets, Theo pumping a manual respirator. Layali performing a C-section under torchlight. No explosions, not yet. Just the unbearable weight of truth. The drone came lower. Its shadow moved over the courtyard like a sword. Noor whispered to Karim, "Stay still, don't look up." He looked anyway. A small blinking light hovered in the sky above them. He smiled. "Is that the camera?" She didn't answer. Theo stood on the roof. He held no weapon, just his badge, old, faded, the red cross in the center, scratched out by sand and time. He held it up toward the drone, as if that would matter. And then, the drone rose, retreated, vanished. The buzzing stopped. No bomb fell. No walls shattered. Samira exhaled so deeply it hurt her ribs. The stream kept rolling. Hannah said nothing. She turned the camera slowly towards Samira, then lowered it. They had survived another broadcast. In the silence afterward, Fareed found Theo in the watershed, tightening a leak. "You should have let it hit," Fareed said. Theo didn't look up. "You think we're martyrs?" "I think martyrs get headlines. We get recycled." Theo tightened the valve. "I don't care what the world sees." "Then why stand on the roof?" Theo wiped his hands. "Because someone had to." Journal entry, Noor Issa. "Today I watched a bomb not fall. I've never felt that kind of fear. The kind where you expect to die, and it doesn't happen, and suddenly you have to figure out how to keep going.
What do you do with that energy? You sew, you sing, you clean scalpels, you whisper to babies, and you pray, not for safety, just for clarity, for the strength to not become what this place is trying to make of you. That night, Samira found Kareem sleeping in the break room, his hand still resting on a box of medical labels. She tucked the lamb beside him. No one else noticed. She didn't need them to. Hannah's stream passed 1 million views. She shut off the recorder at 2:03 a.m. Then she collapsed in her chair and cried for the first time in weeks. She didn't cry for the dead. She cried for the survivors, for the ones who had to keep showing up, day after day.
Because showing up was the only resistance they had left. Chapter 10, The Line We Draw. The power died at 1917. Not a flicker, not a warning, just black. No backup hum, no generator kick. Silence. Samira stood mid-suture. Needle paused in a child's leg. Then the lights were gone. Her eyes adjusted quickly. Years of war did that. But something in her chest sank. This wasn't routine. This was the signal of something else. A shift. "Check the inverter," she said, voice tight. Farid moved instantly, stumbling over a supply box in the dark. Theo lit a headlamp. The beam wavered through smoke, still hanging in the OR from the kerosene burners. Outside, the wind picked up. The drone hadn't returned since the broadcast, but something else had replaced it. A hum deeper, thicker, closer. Theo pressed the headset to his ear. "Convoy inbound," he muttered. "Unknown markings. Moving fast." Ayad arrived from the north gate. 4 vehicles. Not UN, not Red Crescent. "What then?" asked Layali. "Already bundling blankets. Don't know. Could be local militia. Could be something worse." Theo cocked his head. "They're coming for the stream. Or what they think we are now." Samira pulled off her gloves. "Secure the patients. Get the kids downstairs. Lock the surgery room." Hannah stepped forward. "Do we fight?" "No," Samira said. "We stand. And if they shoot, then we bleed honestly." 22 people remained in Al-Nur. 12 could walk. 4 were critical. 6 were newborns. Kareem helped Noor carry saline bags down to the lower hall. Theo loaded syringes into his vest, not weapons, but the closest thing he had to tools of defiance. Farid handed Samira the hospital's old satellite phone. "If it goes bad," he said, "call Geneva, or Cairo, or God." Samira took it. "You're coming with us." He shook his head. "Not this time." The vehicles arrived at 1932. No lights, no sirens, just motion in the dark. Samira stood in the courtyard with Theo, Ayad, and Layali. They wore white coats, empty hands, no weapons. The front vehicle stopped 10 meters away. Doors opened. 6 men stepped out. Civilian clothes, covered faces, military posture. One held a rifle. Another carried a handheld radio, red light blinking. "Are you the doctor?" one asked. Samira stepped forward. "I am." He stared at her. "You're the one who filmed the girl dying." "I didn't film her," she replied, "but I held her hand." He tilted his head. "You embarrassed people. She was already dead. You made people choose sides. I showed what you refused to see." A long silence. Then he stepped forward. "Shut it down. It's already off." He held up the radio. "Then what's this?" Hannah stepped from behind the entryway, camera at her side. "That's a relay ping. It records traffic, not footage." "Delete it." "No." He raised his weapon slightly. Theo stepped forward. "Lower that." "You a soldier?" "Not anymore." "Then stay out of it." Theo didn't move. "I never was good at obedience." Everything stopped for a second. Wind, breath, time. Then a woman stepped from the back of the convoy. Civilian clothes. No weapon, no mask. Her voice cut through the stillness. "Let them be." The armed man turned. They saved my sister." Layali recognized her thirst. Rima, former midwife, thought to be killed in the January raids. But alive. She stepped closer. "They are not your enemy." The man hesitated, lowered his weapon. "You're lucky," he said to Samira. "Today." She nodded.
Today is all we have. Usa. The vehicles left 15 minutes later. No blood spilled. No shots fired. But something inside the hospital stayed fractured. Not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. The line had held, but only barely.
That night, Samira walked the halls in silence. She passed Kareem asleep with his hand in a bowl of warm water.
Noor snoring softly under an emergency blanket. Hannah writing on the back of a surgical gown.
She found Theo in the generator room, staring at the wall.
"You okay?" she asked.
He nodded.
"I think so."
"You didn't back down."
"I almost did."
"But you didn't. That has to count for something." Samira sat beside him.
After a long silence, she said, "We're not supposed to survive this." "I know. But we are." He looks at her and smiled. "But because someone has to lose slower. Someone has to buy enough time for a girl with gauze in her hand to become something more than what this war tried to make her.
Maybe that's what medicine really is. A refusal, a rebellion, a quiet, persistent no."
Outside, the sun rose slow and red, blood-colored, but still warm. Inside Al-Nur, the smell of antiseptic lingered under fresh coffee. Someone laughed, someone cried, someone took their first step again, and the war continued. But so did they. Not heroes, not martyrs, just the ones who refused to look away. Epilogue. After the dust. 3 months later, the war paused. Not peace, just a pause. The kind that comes not from resolution, but from exhaustion. Ceasefires signed by men in suits who never smelled the rot of a collapsed lung, or heard a child say, "I'm sorry," with their last breath. The bombs stopped falling. The drones stopped circling. And Al-Nur Hospital still stood. Just barely. Theo left first, back to Europe.
He said nothing when he boarded the convoy truck, just pressed a folded note into Samira's palm. "You kept me human. That's more than medicine ever gave me." He never told anyone where he went, but 3 months later, a clinic opened on the Ukrainian border.
Anonymous, independent, no signs, just one phrase on the wall. No side, just lives. Leali stayed. So did Noor, so did Kareem. They rebuilt the maternity tent. Added color to the children's ward, Kareem's idea. His lamb now hung from the rafters, patched in 20 places, grinning crookedly. Noor started teaching again, first aid lessons for local girls. She used gauze, markers, and puppets. "Learn to save," she said, even when no one's watching. Farid disappeared after the war ended. Some said he crossed the border. Others said he was buried beneath rubble during a relief effort. Samira believed neither. She just kept his badge pinned above the operating room door. No inscription, just bloodstains. Zarid. Hannah's footage was used in 3 documentaries, 2 war crime tribunals, and a viral campaign that raised $10 million for field hospitals. She refused to take any credit. "Point the lens at them," she said. "I'm just the middle." She never returned to Gaza, but she carried it with her, everywhere. Samira stayed. She refused the offers, London, Geneva, Cairo. She chose the cracked walls, the half-supplied pharmacy, the sound of rain hitting tarpaulin. Not because she believed it was over, but because she knew it wasn't, and someone had to hold the line, still, always. On the wall near the nurses' station, someone painted in blue ink, "This is where we chose to be human." No signature, no date. But the handwriting looked familiar. Samira never asked. Some things were better left as gifts. White coats, red lines. They never crossed them. They stood behind them. Until the world finally noticed, and maybe, just maybe, listened. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.